Hey goalers, did you ever buy a bike, bring it home from the bike shop, and then just go riding and say, wow, this bike is set up perfectly for me? Or have you ever questioned, is there a better way to set up my bike? Am I doing it? Is it set up properly? Well, good news. In this video, you'll find out how to set up your bike properly from a level 4 master, Mr. Coach Ian Hughes. He's with us today. Coach Ian?
Now we're going to look bike setup. It can get pretty complicated. It can be overwhelming. There's a couple of easy principles that you can apply. If you want to get deeper into the subject afterwards, there's a lot of information out there. However, if you just stick to the basics, as I'm going to cover, you should be well off and be comfortable on a bike. What are you looking for in bike setup? You want to be comfortable and you want the bike to be adaptable. So there's a lot of settings that you can do on a bike, so let's look at them. First off, there's going to be the saddle position. In the saddle position, there's a lot of things that you can do. There's going to be the saddle height, there's going to be the saddle fore and aft, and there's even the angle of the saddle. So let's look at them. The first thing to look at is the saddle height at its maximum height. What I want is to have a full extension of the legs. So I want to be powerful, I want to be smooth, and I want to be efficient. If the saddle is too low, I'm actually going to strain my muscles. If the saddle is too high, well, I can get injured. So those are the things to look for. What I want to do is I need level hips, and I want to pedal smoothly. So as you can see, when I'm pedaling, I have very level hips. The hips are not rocking side to side. So this is the first thing. You want to gain stability. Next up, saddle height to be at its maximum effectiveness. You can lower the heel without rocking the hips, and the heel should be slightly below the pedal. So you have the pedal height and the heel slightly lower. One trick that the mechanics use often is, are you able to put the heel on the pedal with a full extension? If you can do that, you can easily clip in and have the heel slightly downwards. This will help you a lot. Next up is going to be the saddle fore and aft. With the saddle fore and aft, I'm going to explain it off the bike. It's going to be a lot simpler. When I'm sitting comfortably in my saddle, what I'm looking for is, I want to take a plumb line. You can find those in hardware stores. You have the end of the patella, and then you have a little bump here. You can actually dig your finger between the patella and the femur. So this is the golden zone. If you put the plumb line directly here and you let the plumb line descend, you should be directly over the pedal axle. So my knee is here. Plumb line goes straight down. I'm in a centered position. This is where you want to start at. Afterwards, there's going to be personal preference. Personally, I like to be forward and I like to be over the pedals. I like to have this feeling of being nice and smooth over the pedal. This is where I feel the most efficient and powerful. Some folks will like to be a little back. You're going to use your back muscles. You're going to use your butt muscles a little bit more. However, there's going to be a drawback. So you're going to miss some efficiency by pedaling forward like this. What pro riders usually do, start off with a centered position. You can move your saddle just in front and make sure that you feel comfortable and efficient. Next up is the saddle tilt. So you want to have your saddle level. This is a good starting point. Then you can have your saddle slightly pointing up. You're going to have more stability. However, you might have some saddle sores. So that's something to watch out for. Some people like to have the saddle pointed downwards. They feel more comfortable and they don't feel as much saddle sores. However, if your saddle is pointing down, actually what happens is that you are using your shoulders a lot more just to resist and to place yourself in position. It's like as the hips were always sliding forward and you was using your shoulder muscles to just remain in position. Now you can have sore shoulders. So you have to decide whether you want a level saddle. This is what I recommend. Then experiment. A little up, a little down if you do have saddle sores. When the saddle is slammed to the lowest position, this is when you're going to be descending. There's actually going to be some sizes to it. It can be fully extended, 210 millimeters of travel. So that means that there's a big variation between fully up and slam down. Cross-country athletes will want 50 millimeters of travel. That means that the saddle is at the highest position, and when they press on button and sit down, it only goes down 50 mil. For them, this is very efficient. In a race, if you're fumbling with the height, you're losing seconds. So for cross-country racers, that's really, really important. For me, just free riding, having fun, this here is 180. You can have 170 as well. That's the happy medium. You're going to find most bikes equipped with that saddle height. If you have a really, really short bike, a small or extra small, usually they come in 150 or 130 mil. It's pretty simple. Actually, when you have this here at the slowest position and you're putting the saddle way up, you don't want a saddle to be too high. That way, well, you're not going to feel comfortable. It's going to be impossible for you. Instead of being fully high, you're going always to be, oh, okay, that's my real saddle height. So that's really, really bad. So you should always pick the right height. And if ever your bike stock doesn't come equipped with this right height, you can always ask your bike shop for a swap. They'll be happy to help you. Hopefully. Next up is the cleat position. So this is where you're going to clip in to the pedals and your foot is going to be well placed on the pedal. You can have flat pedals as well. So let's start off with flat pedals. You have the axle of the pedal right here. When you have a flat pedal shoe, you can have the ball of the foot directly over the axle of the pedal. You can always have the arch of the foot in the axle of the pedal. Neither of them is good. So you need the pedal position or you need the foot position to be just a little back of the axle, not completely at the arch, not completely on the ball of the foot, midways. So you should feel that the ball of the foot is just slightly ahead of the axle. And that's a really, really good position to start off with. With clipped in pedals, what I would do is, well, you're clipped in, so you have no choice. You don't have that maneuverability that flat pedals offer. So you're going to have the two big bones here on the side of the foot, on either side. So interior is going to be a little forward, exterior is going to be a little back. If you draw a line between both of these bones, you have a central position. That central position is going to be exactly your cleat position. This is the neutral position at which to start off with. So you can rock the cleats forward and back. For enduro riding, what I recommend, same thing as in flat pedals. I'm starting off with the neutral position, the axle of the pedal directly on the cleat. If I move my cleat back, I'm going to achieve the same position as with flat pedals, just a little behind the ball of the foot. If I want to do cross country and I want to be super, super efficient, I can have the pedal axle directly over the ball of the foot. Central position, it's the most efficient. For enduro riding or technical riding, you can be just a little back. So those are the big pointers. If the saddle position and the cleat position is well established, you don't touch anything else. Some people will say, well, your bike is short, so you have to move your saddle forward. Or your bike is long, move the saddle forward. Or your bike is short, move the saddle way back. This is wrong. So you have the lower body and you have the saddle to be able to adjust. Once the lower body is set, then you're going to set the rest. You're going to set the upper body. If you are cheating with your position, well, you can get injured. So it's for the health of your knees. Those are really, really important. Now, for the reach, it all refers to your position when you are in neutral and ready position. So as you can see, right now, I'm in neutral position. And you look at the angle of my body. My back is straight, my chin is up, and you notice the angle of my arms compared to my torso. It's going to be about maybe 25, 30 degrees. If you're a cross-country racer, you can go up to 45 degrees. So you're going to be lower and more towards the forward position. This is going to be really efficient for climbing. This is a fun bike, so I can afford to be just a little higher. When you are going into the ready position, what you have to look out for is bending your arms, having your elbows pointing up, and then notice the chin over the stem. When you have your chin over the stem, this is the most efficient position for driving the bike. If your bike is too short, you're going to feel forward. If your bike is too long, you're going to feel backwards. So you need to have the perfect size frame in order to adapt. And afterwards, you can adapt with the size of your stem. You can have a 30 millimeter stem, which is pretty much the bare minimum of a stem length. And for a cross-country racer, you can even go up to 120. In the old days, we even had 150 and 160. That was pretty nuts. So you had your body weight directly over the front axle. This is why we're always going overboard. So now on fun bikes, you can go 30 mil, 45, 50 mil. That's pretty much the maximum. So you don't want to exceed that, because basically what you're going to do is you're going to throw your body forward in relation to the front axle. So you don't want that. You want to have a good position, and what I recommend is the right size frame, so you're not cheating forward and backwards. You understand? So you need a good size frame in order to have a sound position, and then you can do little adjustments compared to how you like to ride the bike. Personally, I ride an extra large. I'm 6'1", and if I look at the charts, I'm between a large and an extra large. I have a long torso, and I have very long arms. I feel comfortable with a longer bike. So this is the angle at which I'm comfortable riding. If I had a more balanced body size, I would probably go for a large, but I feel more comfortable on an extra large. This is up to you to decide, and your bike shop will surely be able to help you decide on the right size frame. Nowadays, we're looking at long, low, and slack bikes. So that's the new fad. Maybe in 5 years, it's completely going to change. Who knows? Now, you're going to have the stack height. That's another really, really big subject. If we're thinking simple terms, if the stack height here is high, you're going to feel really stable going down steep pitches. If the stack height is low, you're going to have more control, you're going to be lower and wider on a bike, so you're going to be closer to the ground. Rule of thumb, when you're going into a corner, do you feel that the weight, the front wheel, is light? Do you feel that there's not enough grip? You could afford to be lower on the bike. So, if your technique is sound, you can play with the stack height and maybe go a little bit lower. If you feel you want to feel more stable, you're going into steeps and you're like, I don't like having a lot of weight on my front wheel. I want to be just a little lighter. You could always play with your stack height and be a little higher. One thing, you need to have good flexibility, and that's a huge subject. Basically, if you can't touch your toes, well, you're limited, and you're gonna ride a stack height that's higher. Sometimes you see people on hybrid bikes, the stack height's super, super high, and they're nice and high on a bike. Well, it's because they can't actually bend. So you need to bend straight back, and then you should be able to touch your toes by bending the back. So that's a rule of thumb. If you can't touch your toes, you're limited. You should do yoga. Just kidding. Afterwards, we're going to look at the handlebar width. Now, in the old days, we had handlebars that were really, really close together. So we had a lot of maneuverability. We could go into tight forests and tight trees. However, we were missing a lot of the stability that a wide handlebar offers. Think of your push-up position. You are strong when you have your shoulders and your hands just apart from the shoulders. So you have your shoulders and the hands that are sticking here. This should be pretty much your starting position with the handlebar width. If it's too close together, you're going to feel more nimble. If it's further back, if it's really wide, you're going to feel more stable. There's a limit to this. If you're really, really wide, like in the early 2000s, we had a handlebar width that were 800, 820, 840. You even had crazy stuff as handlebar extenders because it was never wide enough. So we were riding pretty much like this. That was a little too much. Now, we tend to reduce the handlebar width. And if we look at pro enduro riders, they're riding maybe 760 mil, 750 mil. You have to adapt. For my daughter, I have 740 mil. She has very narrow shoulders. It's still pretty wide for her in the standards that we're looking at. She has the stability and it's not too wide. So basically, you have to start off with a good starting point and then a little narrow, a little wide. This is where you can adapt. What's going to help you? Do I need more stability or do I need more maneuverability? So this is really going to help you decide.
Hey, I'm Renee,
I'm Charles.
and together we're building a platform,
It's called Goal.tv.
the Great Outdoors Learning Hub. This membership site will give you access to all the knowledge about outdoor activities. So it will go from mountain biking to backcountry skiing to camping in the first year. So the idea is to get an expert in each field to teach us what we need to know about that sport.
Join us, become a goaler, just like us.